The Splatoon 3 Splatfest last weekend felt amazing from start to finish, and I want to briefly give my thoughts about every aspect about how the game felt. If you want to see more from me, be sure to like and subscribe, and with that being said, let's get into it. I want to start out by talking about the Tri-Stringer and the Splatana, since those were definitely the biggest things I wanted to try out first. The Tri-Stringer's paint was frustrating at first because it's impossible to just tap ZR and easily paint a trail in front of you like other weapons can in a game, but this clip from Omega on Twitter shows that one of the quickest ways to do so is to jump and quickly fire one shot in the air and another one forward, which definitely helped me use the weapon just a little bit better, but I still think that it will need a paint buff of some kind since looking up the sky to paint isn't really that good. When it comes to aiming though, it's pretty hard to land all 3 shots on anyone, especially if they're really far away, but it doesn't make the weapon not function at all, and the explosions that come with the shots are definitely pretty handy too. So overall, I think the bow is pretty solid. When it comes to the Splatana, it was definitely a weird weapon to try and get right most of the time, but I found myself using the charge slashes a ton since it's the most effective way to splat someone from far away. I think its one-shot slash could use a bit more range, but overall it was pretty fun to use, and the kit complements it pretty well. There was also a lot of talk about it being a bad weapon on Twitter, and while I agree it was pretty easy to pick off people that were using it, I think we really need to see it in action at a higher level competitively to see what it can really do. In short, if either the bow or Splatana are going to have a solid spot in Splatoon 3's meta, they both could use some buffs, such as the bow being able to hold its charge or the Splatana's one-shot slash having a bit more range like I mentioned before. At a higher level competitively, they'll absolutely need that one person or team that uses it extremely well, and right now sadly I can see them being outclassed by other weapons, but only time will tell if either of them will be able to shine, and I for one really want to see that happen. Other main weapons that needed some fixes were able to get them, which I'm really happy about too. Slosher. The hits felt way more consistent than they were in Splatoon 2, and the curves felt easier to pull off without too much motion needed. Dynamo. They got rid of that weird hole in its paint where you flat out couldn't deal damage sometimes. Thank goodness for that. Blaster. Jump RNG. So much better. 10 Umbrella. While it's not perfect, its damage is way more consistent than it was before. I know for a fact that people that main these weapons are going to have a much better time playing the game, and I'm glad that the Splatoon dev team were able to fix them. Moving on to the new sub, which I know is called the Angle Shooter, but I'm just going to call it the Marker. It was okay. I use the Splatshot Pro a lot, but I didn't really see myself using it too much, but it's a nicely balanced sub, and I feel like it's something that I just need to get used to. I think they could make the reference line that you use to aim much bigger, but other than that, it's not bad. Moving on to specials, every single one in the Splatfest was exciting to use, and I feel it was single-handedly the best part about all the new changes. They are extremely fun to use, fun to interact with, and all have great weaknesses to them. You can shoot at someone from behind to stop Crab Tank and Inkvac. While using Tri-Strike, you can't go into Squid form. Tacticooler uses those blue arrows to show where you are at all times. It's almost like an echo locator. Big Bubbler can be shot at from anywhere to reduce its size. It's no longer too much of a necessity to use your special to counter other specials, and that just makes the game way more fun to play. Other changes I would make are buffing the health on Wavebreaker because it's way too easy to destroy. I think Zipcaster could use some armor since there are times I was easily able to stop it just by shooting at it, and Hammer desperately needs to be fixed. Its hitbox still has some major issues. But looking at the specials from Splatoon 1 and 2 and comparing them to 3, it's just way more fun playing with and against them, and I'm really glad they were able to design them so much better. Looking at the Squid Roll, I'm not gonna lie, I was without a doubt one of the many people that completely forgot it existed once I hopped on the test fire. As someone who's played this game since Splatoon 1, it's definitely gonna take some getting used to, but once the game releases and I get more used to it competitively, I'll look into talking about it way more. But one thing to note though is that there are 2 instances I did the Squid Roll but proceeded to get killed by a charger while doing it, so despite it being able to mitigate damage dealt from bombs, one-shot weapons will still most likely be able to splat you, which is a very good thing to see. Going over the maps, overall they felt okay, but some definitely lacked different ways to move, which a good map honestly needs. On Undertow, you're forced to move through mid and don't have the option to go to the sides. On Scorched Gorge, the only way to move onto the enemy side is a bridge you can easily get sniped from. On Mahi Mahi, if a good E-leader is sitting in mid, there's absolutely nowhere to go without getting sniped. There isn't a left flank anymore, and there's hardly any platforms by the water that Splatoon 1 had. They're not absolutely garbage, but I feel some reworks are definitely needed just to make these maps feel a little bit more playable. When it comes to the new spawn areas, some were good and some were downright horrible. A good spawn area on any map gives your team enough space to work with to where the opposing team can't just roam free, kill anyone landing in, and there are multiple ways to move back into mid. On a map like Mahi Mahi, it was way too easy to spawn camp people, especially those who had clearly never played the game before until the test fire, and I seriously hope that they make improvements to that in the main game. I feel like Undertow had the best design in terms of just the spawn region because there was no way of camping people's respawns unless you had Zipcaster and had a decent amount of spots to move back in. The other map spawns like Mincemeat were pretty good as well, and if you got spawn camped, that was mostly on you and your team for just not working together well enough to prevent that from happening. But Mahi Mahi definitely needs a rework, and I absolutely hope Ranked won't have that same spawn layout in Splatoon 3. When it comes to respawning itself, I think the armor you're given is fine. Again, it just mostly comes down to if they design the maps better, so as soon as you land, the enemy can't just kill you instantly. For Tricolor Turf War, I plan to talk more about it in my next video, but in short, I think it was really fun to play and it's pretty alright. Keep in mind, I only played it on the defending team on Team Scissors while playing it with my friends on my alt account. The mode could use some tweaks here and there, but it's not as bad as people make it out to be. Other multiplayer things I'd like to mention are some new changes once someone disconnects from a match. During Turf War, if someone DCs in what seems like the first minute, the match will be terminated for everybody and one team won't be forced to continue a match where they're at a disadvantage. Even if the match isn't terminated with a DC, the game will still not be counted as a loss, and they made the UI make it much more obvious once someone DCs mid-match since it was way harder to tell in the past games. Also, they changed the time you can be AFK and stay in a match from 1 minute to 30 seconds. When it comes to the lobby, I think the testing range is amazing and I love the amount of space you have just to roam around. The little upstairs area in the back hints at what I think will be the little lobby minigames like Squid Jump and Squid Ball from Splatoon 1, which I certainly hope we'll get again. But the main thing that caught me off guard every single time was how fast a match would start. And I get it, it was probably really fast because literally millions of people were playing the Splatfest, but it's safe to say that the start of the main game will definitely have smaller wait times between each match, which will definitely feel really nice. And last thing I want to note is the Splatfest music. It's awesome. Seriously, both of those songs from Deep Cut are bangers. I spent probably hours listening to them once it was over. But with that, that's all my thoughts about how the Splatfest went, and without a doubt, I had a really good time. I seriously can't wait for the next one, and Splatoon 3 can't come soon enough. It looks like the game is going to be really fun, and I'm eager to see what we have in store. Let me know what you guys thought about Splatfest in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.